we made it in without any weird or strange dancing going on. That was a good intro. That was a smooth intro.
Man, and it's our Michael Jordan episode, just missing the Michael. And he's out this week. Episode 23.
Okay. Oh, is that Michael Jordan's number?
Michael Jordan's number. There you go.
Didn't know that. I know football, not basketball.
Yeah, sorry.
Well, welcome in, fools, to episode 23. As you can see here, there's a tiny elephant not in the room, and that is Mike, and he is out today. I think he was going to Dallas for a wedding.
We fired him. No,
yeah, he's out of here. He was just not helping us pull profit. That was the problem. Yeah, and his job as timekeeper was starting to fail.
Yeah. Yeah.
But anyway, Mike is out today. He'll be back next week. But for today's episode, we're gonna dive into. There's not much NFL news going around the league right now. It's kind of been slow the past week.
Yeah, it's a little bit slow. I'm sure Mike would have found more topics, but we've got 2 quick points. Ayuk and the 49ers appear to be no closer to getting a contract done. Ayuk wants $30 million. 49ers supposedly don't want to go higher than 26. And then the other thing of quick semi-big news is basically Joe Shane talking about what's going on in Hard Knocks. So he essentially said that we've got to upgrade the offensive line and you're paying the guy $40 million. It's not to hand the ball off to a $12 million back. So basically saying, like, we're not paying both of them. It makes no sense for our offense. Giving us a little bit of insight into partially why Saquon left. He said this is a year for Daniel. Plan all along was to give him a couple years. Is this our guy for the next 10 years? Or do we need to pivot and find somebody else? Tyler, what do you think?
I've been saying it the entire time. Daniel Jones is not their guy. They need to move on. And so this is my thought. What did the Giants give up for Saquon to not keeping Saquon? And honestly, do you think they had their eggs in the basket, more eggs in the basket in Daniel Jones than they did for Saquon? Do you think that's part of the reason they got rid of him? They have more faith in DJ.
I don't think it has to do with faith. I think it has to do with the way that the market works position-wise. And the way Joe Shane, I think, looked at it was, hey, paying Daniel $40 million and Saquon $12 million, where now we're paying $52 million to just these two players. What do they bring together to the team? Is it worth that $52 million? We're already stuck paying $40 to Daniel. Let's find a deeper.
Yeah, but that's the thing. I don't know. I don't know much about the contract terms and everything. But are they stuck paying Daniel Jones anyway? Is that
for
why
at least
he let
this season?
Okay, so they had to pay him no matter if they cut him or whatever. So keeping Saquon was the only, or letting him go was the only thing they really could do.
The other thing was that they wanted to upgrade the offensive line, and they traded for defensive end Brian Burns with the Panthers. He came in and got like a big 5-year contract. I don't think that happens if Saquon had stayed.
Yeah, I think they should have cut Jones, though. I think Saquon was worth it. But anyway,
after this year.
Yeah,
after this year,
right? And then you gave Saquon away for nothing.
Yeah, but he's 27. He might decline. We'll see.
Yeah.
No,
but anyway, that was some
that Eagles line.
That is some NFL news happening around the NFL, and now we're going to continue our divisional breakdown. And today, we're going to talk about the AFC South. This is going to be an interesting division. I'm not really sure what we're going to get because I feel like, Jordan, I feel like this division could either explode or stay middle of the pack.
Yeah, I think we could have a really, really strong division, but it's not guaranteed. Like at least 3 of these teams can and probably should make the playoffs.
Yeah. It's going to be interesting, but, and we did this last week, and I kind of like this. We're going to do it again. Jordan, real quick, who's ending up in what position in this division? Who's first, who's last?
Oh, Texans first. Jaguars second. Colts third, Tennessee fourth.
I was almost there with you. I'm actually going Texans, Colts, Jaguars, Titans.
I almost did that. That was the hardest choice. Second and third was the hardest choice for me.
Yeah, and we're gonna get into it, and we'll give some more color on why I'm leaning that way and why Jordan's leaning that way. But right now, Jordan, kick us off with the divisional breakdown for the Indianapolis Colts.
Yeah, actually looking at who's staying, who's leaving at the Colts, I may have to agree with you that Colts is going to be number 2. And we'll get to why later, but big names staying here are Jonathan Taylor, Anthony Richardson, Michael Pittman, and Josh Downs. Now, if Mike were here, I know he would say, first and foremost, he's a little disappointed in Downs. All right? So we'll see about that. And then Michael Pittman, I think he's going to have an awesome season. He did last year. He earns his spot as the number 1 in a franchise as a receiver, and now he's got his quarterback back. So Anthony Richardson is the only quarterback, I believe, to have a rushing and passing touchdown in his first 3 games. So I'm really excited to see what this guy's going to do. If he has a healthy season, I think he's easily top 6. I don't think he falls below 6 in quarterback rankings end of season. And, yep, Tyler?
Yeah, so this is actually a funny team to me. They've got a lot of talent, right? We talked about Pittman. We talked about Downs. They're adding Adonai Mitchell. They have a great wide receiving core.
Good point.
This team we talked about this the other team last week, but the Packers and the Colts, they feel so similar to me. Both have very mobile quarterbacks between Jordan Love and Anthony Richardson. Both of these teams have a really good wide receiver core, and that's Josh Downs, Pittman, Mitchell. The Packers have Watson, Dobbs, who's can't think of the third one, but
Watson,
I know they're Watson,
Dobbs, and
yeah, that one, the one we
God,
can't
who's
remember.
The other one?
But anyway,
Jaden
Reed. Both these teams seem so similar, and I feel like if Anthony Richardson can pull it off, he's in the same boat as Jordan Love, in my opinion, where you're going to get points from throwing because he's got all these targets, and you're going to get points from him running.
I completely agree. Now, the other thing is that I believe the offensive line is supposed to be fairly highly ranked, like top 5 this season. So that definitely helps this next player, Jonathan Taylor, along with Richardson. Tyler, where are you feeling that you're putting Taylor, especially now that Zach Moss is gone?
Honestly, I think if I'm looking at this from a fantasy perspective, the guys that I'm actually going to target, I think Richardson's probably going to be my sleeper target. If he goes after the top, if you're in a 12-man league, if he goes after the 12th QB pick, he's definitely going to be my second QB, and probably later on I'd look for him to be possibly my first. He's a hit or miss. You're going to take a risk on him.
There's a little risk, yeah.
Right, yeah. I'm targeting Jonathan Taylor. I'm targeting Pittman. I think Downs is going to be a great addition. Mitchell and Downs, I think, are probably more flex options. The wide receiver 3s, wide receiver 4s, having your bench. But definitely, I'm looking to target Richardson and Jonathan Taylor for sure.
I think I'm pretty high on Richardson. I'm comfortable taking him, possibly even 7th round. I don't know if I'd go earlier than that, just because there's a lot of unknowns, and the pace he was playing at, it'd be absurd to expect him to continue that for a full season. That's not going to happen. However, even if it's 85% of what he was on pace to do for the full season, that's still a freaking awesome season and a top 5 quarterback in fantasy.
Yeah.
And then Jonathan Taylor, where are you picking him? What round are you comfortable picking him?
I honestly still think he's a top 5 running back. Even last season, he came back from injury, and if memory serves me, he did pretty well after injury, or I'm sorry, his injury. I would put him highly.
Issue which took out the first 4 weeks.
Right. I would put him highly. Honestly,
you taking him first round?
Well, who's he going up against now? You got to think about it. There's Jahmyr Gibbs, Christian McCaffrey.
Bijan Robinson, Brees
Bijan
Hall,
Robinson.
Kyron Williams.
I would put him. I would pick him late first round. Maybe
That's where I put him.
maybe second, late first to late second. So in between, somewhere in that second round.
Right, late first, early second is where I put him. If he somehow makes it to late second round, take him.
Yeah. And even looking at his stats though too, last season he 22, 12, 9, 18, 17, 24, 12, 21, 30. Like he's got juice in him. He's young, he's 25. Yep. I still value him highly.
Is there anybody you would avoid here?
This is where I think it's you got to pick the right person, right? I don't necessarily know if I'm targeting Downs or Mitchell, but definitely looking at them. And I think if you're not a risky drafter, avoid them.
I agree. But I don't think there's anybody on here that doesn't deserve to be on a fantasy roster. It's just a matter of where you pick these guys. We talked about Taylor's worth of late first, early second pick. Richardson between 6 and 9, depending on how early quarterbacks go in your league. Pittman, I think he pushes top 12 wide receiver.
Yeah, I would say Pittman is going to be someone that I'm targeting as a wide receiver 2. Maybe lock in
maybe
like
early third round.
Yeah, definitely.
I'm happy with that. Especially, let's say I pick like a Tyreek Hill early first round, and then I pick Kyron Williams second round. I'm perfectly happy taking Michael Pittman in the third.
I would agree with you. I was thinking something like Amon-Ra and Michael Pittman. Like
Amon-Ra's the other guy who came to my mind.
I'd be happy with that. So that's the Colts. Diving in now to the Jacksonville Jaguars. Some big names staying. Obviously, you got Trevor Lawrence, just got signed to a big fat deal. Christian Kirk, Travis Etienne, Evan Engram. Some people leaving. You did see Calvin Ridley depart. He's now on the Tennessee Titans. And some key players that they added. They added Brian Thomas Jr. in this recent draft, who is a pretty standout wide receiver. Interested to see what he's going to do there. They added he who shall not be named, number 13. And it looks like they added Mac Jones, interestingly enough, as their backup, but nothing there really interests me. But from a fantasy perspective, Jordan, before we get into who you're targeting, I just want to talk. The Jacksonville Jaguars are that team I don't put faith in. I don't believe in Trevor Lawrence like other people do.
I don't necessarily either. It's very tough for me fantasy wise. I really thought Lawrence's year to be a top 5 guy was last year.
Yeah.
He's now losing Calvin Ridley, and in terms of wide receivers, in the Jaguars 17th was where Calvin Ridley ended the season. That's the highest of anybody, I believe, that was on their team last year. I do see that Christian Kirk is sticking around, but I mean, he's hit his ceiling. What we've seen him do is what he'll continue to do. There's no upside besides that. Really, I kind of just think it's Engram I'm potentially interested in, and Etienne.
Yeah, I agree with you. Trevor Lawrence, depending on your rule settings, ended up right around 13th in quarterbacks last year. So I think there's better candidates who could have better breakout. Like guys who come to my mind are guys like, and this is going to sound crazy, but Gardner Minshew, Baker Mayfield, guys. Look, if you're already at pick number 13 and you don't have a quarterback, don't even spend it. Wait till you get to a guy like Gardner. At that point, now you're going between, Jordan, if you're in a draft and you're at pick number 9 or 10 and you need a quarterback, would you go Trevor Lawrence or someone like Damian Pierce or Adonai Mitchell if he's available? I put those a little above where that would be.
Yeah, especially because, let's take a look at who was able to, Brock Purdy, who doesn't necessarily bring stats himself, he made it up to 6. Like Jared Goff, these guys that have a stronger receiving core, but maybe aren't as talented, whatever you want to say about Lawrence, are putting up better fantasy points.
Right.
Baker Mayfield, he was 10th. CJ Stroud, 11th. Sam Howell was 12th. Like all three of those guys were ahead of Lawrence. So I'm going to agree with you on that.
Yeah.
That you can look at other positions to address. Lawrence is not on my radar this season.
Yeah, I am so with you. I think that's the thing that you kind of have to make that game time decision during your draft. Where do you put more value? Do you put more value in those other positions, running backs, wide receivers, or do you take the number 13 quarterback? And I think, honestly, this year, I think the quarterback talent's good. I think Trevor Lawrence is, I don't know if he's going to break top 15.
I'm going to say he's borderline avoid for me. Yeah. I'm not going to say full on avoid. He'd be perfectly fine as my QB2. I'm not confident with him as my QB1. It's not in my risky potential plan to like, hey, be strong everywhere else and then hope Lawrence pops off. I don't see that happening. Christian Kirk could be decent because Calvin Ridley's gone, but now you have Brian Thomas Jr., really Engram, who finished 6th last season, and Etienne, who finished 3rd last season, are the two players, really the only players, I suspect will be top 10 at the end of the season for their position.
Yeah. I'm right there with you. Some guys that I'm actually probably actively avoiding number 13, he who shall not be named, Gabe the Babe. Definitely avoiding him. I don't trust him. This is an interesting one. I think I'm probably going to avoid Christian Kirk unless he falls late. And I don't think he will. I think people are going to pick Christian Kirk up. I'm thinking probably the 8th, 9th round.
Yeah, he gets a little bit of a bump because, he's now the clear number 1 with Ridley gone, but
he's consistent.
Exactly. Like we've seen where he's going to land. He's not going to, he finished, how many games did he play last year? He played, he missed like the last 4. Yeah. And he finished 47th on the season. I don't think he'd be above 25 if he played those 4.
No. You know what? And looking at last year's stats, honestly, I think I might be more of a solid avoid. He had a great 2022 season. He was healthy. He played a lot of games. But now that you've got this new, fresh rookie, I'm going to put Kirk in my avoid category.
Kirk and Lawrence. Honestly, they're Lawrence less, but Kirk, I'm not hyped about picking Kirk. I think there's other receivers that are out there that will fall to that range.
Yeah, another guy, look to draft, probably could be a sleeper is Brian Thomas Jr. I think he's a guy that probably is going to fall. I think he's going to fall after Christian Kirk, and he could be a good sneaky pickup.
Could he potentially take the number 1 spot by the end of the season?
I think he could.
Potentially.
I think he potentially could. I think he's still a late round guy. I think he's going to go after Kirk. But I think he's definitely a guy that you could stash in your bench just in case he blows up.
Right. And our next team that we have in the AFC South, we have the Houston Texans. Now, actually, some of the big names staying might be people I would look at over Kirk. Now you're going to have Tank Dell and Nico Collins, who provided pretty decent value last year because of how good CJ Stroud played. I think that's going to continue here. Dameon Pierce, another big name staying, a bit of a bummer, not so exciting. But Dalton Schultz, he could be a solid tight end, especially because now he's going to be in his second year with this quarterback. He finished 11th last year. Tyler, on this team of the people staying, who excites you?
So here's the thing. I think from a quarterback perspective, I'm excited to see CJ Stroud. So definitely, I think I'm going with a firm target on CJ Stroud. I think he's showed us what he can do last season. I think he's going to keep stepping it up.
I think he finishes higher than 11th this year.
Yeah, 100%. So definitely a guy I'm looking at overall. Another guy that I'm looking at, and this is going to be a difficult one. Do you value Tank Dell or Nico Collins more than one another?
See, this wide receiver, I'll even throw another name in there. Stephon Diggs, throw him in there. It feels like they're taking a Green Bay Packers approach. Who's going to be number 1 this week? And
yep.
I really don't know. out of the wide receivers here, I think between Nico Collins and Tank Dell specifically, I don't know. Nico
Honestly,
Collins.
I think this is a situation where I wouldn't be mad if I ended up drafting any one of these wide receivers. But to be honest, I think these are all in my avoid category. If I can get
because
them,
the others exist.
yes. If I can get one of them later, if they fall, I'm happy. But to
Right.
draft them where they probably should or are going to end up, I am going to avoid them.
I would be happy with Tank Dell or Nico Collins. So let's see. Tank Dell finished, I think, 37th last year, but Nico Collins actually finished
I think
9th.
he was hot.
So he was pretty hot. Now, so based on that, I'm looking at Nico Collins, but I do think Stroud in his second year is going to be real good at spreading the ball out. I think Diggs is going to affect his value. I might. Would you be confident picking Nico as your wide receiver 2?
Like I said, I mean, it depends on my other positions. If I'm stacked in my running backs and I had a really good wide receiver 1, I ain't mad playing Nico Collins as my wide receiver 2. It depends on where you'd be able to get him. I think so too. It'd have to be one of those. I'm stacked everywhere else. I'll get this guy, knowing where I'm getting him and what I'm probably could be getting him for.
Now, Stephon Diggs finished 12th, and Nico Collins finished 9th. How likely are we to see two top 12 receivers on the same team?
That's interesting. If there was a team to do it, I think it's this team. I think CJ Stroud had one of the best quarterback touchdown to interception ratio, I think, in a while. I think he was number 1 actually in fewest interceptions. But that being said,
he's really good.
Yeah, that being said, he either spreads the ball out way too much where you're not seeing fantasy value from these guys, or he's spreading the ball out a lot and you are seeing a significant value in all three. And I'm trying to think of a good example of when has that happened last, where maybe it could have been Brady, Godwin, Evans could have been a situation like that.
Yeah, Evans and Godwin had a year with Brady that it was like, okay, both these guys have good fantasy value.
Right. I'm
Evans
trying to think of
more so, but
trying to think of another team that's done that. And I know there was one recent. Oh, it's kind of like the Bengals, I guess, where they had Tyler Boyd, T. Higgins, Jamar Chase, and they were all kind of in 2022. They were all getting the ball.
Yeah, Chase and Higgins. We could potentially also see that with the Rams. If Cooper Kupp stays healthy and Puka Nacua continues, we could see another team with the potential of 2 top 12s or top 15.
Yeah, but that this team is, for me,
Number
is
1.
Like one of those
most
where,
likely.
Yeah, where it's either one of them's popping off or you're getting no one. That's how I'm going into the draft thinking.
Okay. I think for me, my targets here are CJ Stroud. I'm very excited for him. I think he's going to be higher than 11th this season, probably top 6. Now, how you feel about Joe Mixon? He finished 6th last season.
So I've said this before. I don't trust Joe Mixon. I know he's coming off a really good season, and I get why people pick him. He's just one of those guys where I'm always worried. I mean, so he went, 23, he went 5th, 22 is 12th, 21 he had 3rd. I think the reason why I have PTSD is because I took him in 2020 where he, ended up 49th. But he's a guy, and he's getting older. That's where I'm worrying. You know what I mean? I feel like him and like Derrick Henry are very close in my book. They're both old. They're both, you know what you're getting.
Aaron Jones.
Yes.
Yeah, I agree with you. I'm nervous to pick Joe Mixon this season. I think a big part of why he popped off last season, continued to pop off last season, is because Joe Burrow wasn't there.
Yes.
And so I don't see him getting the same. He doesn't have the same potential being with the Texans if CJ Stroud's healthy.
100%.
Because that offense is going to clearly run through CJ Stroud 100% of the time.
Yep, I agree. And you add in players like Dell, Collins, Diggs into the mix. It's there's a little bit of margin for error there, but it's going to be an interesting team. Again, I think it's funny. avoids. I mentioned the wide receivers, kind of guys I'm
Damian
nervous
Pierce.
about. I So here's the thing. I think Dameon Pierce. Here's my thought: if you can get him really late, like a running back 4, I would actually target him because he showed he had promise 2 seasons ago. Last season,
He did.
but last season he also didn't have an offensive line to help him. And I know that's not, I'm not trying to discount how he performed, but I think as a running back 4, you give yourself that opportunity for him being a sleeper.
Yeah, especially if we're going off last year's performance and expecting him to do better than that. I think we both do. It's just a matter of how much better.
Yes.
It could be mediocre, or by the end of the season, he could be RB1 and Joe Mixon's his backup.
Yep. 100%. That's kind of how I'm looking at it. But moving on to the Tennessee Titans, we've got, great. Will Levis is still there.
Will Levis.
DeAndre Hopkins staying for another year. Treylon Burks, who I feel like we all were really excited about Treylon Burks, and then our excitement got immediately crushed into smithereens because of how bad he is. They are losing Derrick Henry. They are adding, as we mentioned, Calvin Ridley. And they do have a new head coach.
That's right. Calvin Ridley went to the divisional rival.
Yeah.
Man, interesting. Yeah, this is an interesting team, especially with a new head coach with Brian Callahan. We're just not sure what to expect. It's a new head coach. That's how it goes every time. But in terms of who I'm potentially taking, I don't know if I'm targeting anybody on this team. It might be avoided across the board.
That is why it's funny. The Titans are coming in last in both of our predictions.
Oh yeah,
Nobody
excites me.
Yeah, I got nothing. No one excites me. I mean, who's on their depth chart? I don't even know who they have in their lineup. They're starting running back. They have Tony Pollard. Okay, so I give him a little credit there.
They have Tony Pollard. So
if he pulls off something, they did add Tyler Boyd. They still have Tajay Spears. So I guess there's some.
Spears has potential value, especially if Pollard slows down again,
like he did last season.
Yeah, Pollard did not There's nobody on this team I'm confident picking.
Right.
Like everybody on this team feels like, yeah, there's potential, but there's a lot of risk.
I think the only 2 people I'd be looking at and really push comes to shove, probably always deciding against them, but I would look at Tony Pollard and Tajay Spears, and those are the only 2 people. I don't trust Ridley, I don't trust Hopkins, and I don't trust Boyd because I don't trust Levis. So I think Pollard and Spears, you either get a really good season out of Pollard or you get a really bad season. And then you either get a really good season out of Spears or you get a really bad season. I mean, Titans have always been a running offense, so I feel like one of them is going to pop.
Yeah, Pollard finished 18th last season, which is all right, and Spears finished 39th. So we'll see. In terms of what the offense is going to look like, I mean, their new head coach is the offensive coordinator from Cincinnati. So that's kind of exciting because that's a pretty good offense that they've run the past few years. Now we'll see what he gets out of Will Levis. Honestly, Will Levis could potentially be on my risky QB2 radar, just as my backup. I might keep an eye on him after week 1 or 2 and just be like, hey, are you going to be good enough in my bye week? But other than that, where do you take Calvin Ridley? Wide receiver 2 or 3?
Honestly, 3.
3, just because I don't know about the coach. I don't know about the quarterback.
Yeah.
2 feels very risky. Treylon Burks, again, I just don't see anything popping. Pollard's really the only guy who I'm looking at as an RB2 or 3. Ridley a little bit, but avoid across the board for Titans.
Yeah, I'm with you there. I think this is the first team in our divisional breakdown where you're avoiding across the board. I mean, even the Patriots, you're taking Ramondre Stevenson. It's just this team I'm saying no go to totally.
Yeah, Pollard maybe. But Pollard's not a full on avoid. It just depends on the value. But everybody else, I'm not excited to pick.
Yeah,
Man,
it's just no, I'm
Will
not going
Levis
for
is
it.
too busy making sex tapes. He's not training in the off season. You
Is that
know,
what? Really?
Yeah, I'm pretty sure he got caught with a sex tape. And then DeAndre Hopkins is getting a little older. Traylon Burks disappointed. We'll see. Not excited.
Yeah. No, very, very boring last team in our divisional breakdown. But anyway, that was the AFC South.
Real quick, though, who would you pick best running back in the division?
Best running back in the division, I'm going to go Jonathan Taylor.
Jonathan Taylor. Ooh, not Etienne?
Oh.
It's close.
No.
I think I'm going Jonathan Taylor, too.
I'm going on Jonathan Taylor.
He's got his quarterback back. He's got a full season. Third offensive line ranked by PFF right now. What about quarterback?
Quarterback, I'm going to go with CJ Stroud.
If it was pure football, I'd say CJ Stroud. Fantasy, I'm going Richardson. I think he's
really?
going to be the number one in this division.
Wow.
Fantasy.
All
Not
right.
necessarily team wins, but fantasy.
Okay.
And what about wide receiver?
Wide receiver. Oh, see, this is where it does get hard.
That's probably the weakest position in this division.
It's really hard because it's either going to be Tank Dell, Nico Collins, or Michael Pittman, and I just don't know which one it's going to be. I would say for all intents and purposes, I'd have to go with, I'm going to say probably Michael Pittman.
Michael Pittman is mine too.
Yeah, I know you're high on Nico Collins, but I think I'm going to go Michael Pittman as my favorite in this category.
I got to go Michael Pittman. I know that he finished 25th last season, but he finished 25th in an offense that wasn't performing well in a franchise that seemed to be all over. And now they truly have their quarterback back. They have a good offensive line. I'm going with Michael Pittman. And I'll just ask, any tight ends in this division excite you?
To be honest,
probably
Evan Engram. Engram. I mean,
that's it.
You might look to Dalton Schultz to be a potential sleeper. I don't even know who the Colts tight end is, so don't go with him. And Dunze, what is his name? Chigo Dunze?
Chigo Dunze?
Is he the Titans tight end? I don't even know his name. That's what I'm so no.
That's the thing.
Clearly
they don't have a good presence in fantasy.
Don't do it. Avoid.
Yeah, Schultz. I think Schultz is a good target if you go wide receiver, running back heavy in the beginning, and you're not worried about having a top 3 tight end, but you want a top 12 tight end. Schultz might be the guy who I pick after I have 3 running backs, 3 wide receivers, and my quarterback.
Right. He's good. If I'm going with Schultz, he's going to be my last pick, just to fill my tight end.
My last starter.
Right.
Besides the defense and kicker.
But anyway, well, we did it.
We did
Episode 23 without Mike.
It was
How do you feel?
Fantastic and foolish.
It was pretty foolish.
I felt efficient. A lot of fun
too. Well, thanks for tuning in, everyone. That was episode 23 of the Fantasy Football Podcast.
23.
Keep on watching. Give us a like and subscribe, and you'll keep getting more content. All right. See you later, fools.